Hello, today we are now doing the double replacement reactions lab. All right, so for this lab today, we have 6 different solutions that we're going to be working with. Okay, first we're going to work with some ammonium carbonate. We can see that it's a clear solution. It's the one that we're going to have right down here. Then we have our sodium hydroxide, another clear solution. Then we have several metal solutions. Okay, so for these metal solutions, we have cobalt 2 chloride. Then we have, let's see, some copper 2 chloride. We have iron 3 chloride and then nickel 2 chloride. All right, so for each of these, we're going to go ahead and add a couple of drops for each one. So we're going to add 3 drops of sodium hydroxide across here, and then 3 drops of the ammonium carbonate across their second row, and then we'll add 3 drops of each metal. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put our sodium hydroxide here. 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's the sodium hydroxide. We can see that we have a clear solution there. All right, and our ammonium carbonate. And there we go. All right, so we're going to start with the cobalt 2 chloride. All right, cobalt is a transition metal. Actually, all of these are transition metals. All right, so if you look, we can see that cobalt 2 chloride is pink to begin with. Oh, and I've added it to the ammonium carbonate. Add a couple drops. Or to the sodium hydroxide, we get a blue precipitate. And then for our ammonium carbonate, it still looks pink, a little bit cloudy. So as soon as I get done, we'll look at the black background as opposed to the white to see kind of how things might change a little bit. All right, now I'm going to take my copper 2 chloride. And we know that when we have copper in solution, it's always blue. So we'll add a couple drops. All right, so it looks like we have a blue precipitate there in the sodium hydroxide. And we have another precipitate. We can see that nice and cloudy there in the ammonium carbonate. All right, our third reaction is with iron 3 chloride. Iron, when it's in solution, is going to be a yellow. So here we go. Oh. So we have a kind of yellow precipitate there. Same thing, very similar. Another precipitate in the ammonium carbonate. And then finally, our nickel 2 chloride. All right. Nickel, you can see is a green color when it's in solution. That's what's fun about our transition metals. Many of them are colored solutions. All right. So there we have a slight green precipitate, and then put a little bit more in here. And then we also have a precipitate there. So for each of these, we do have a precipitate that has been produced. So we have a blue precipitate in with a cobalt 2 chloride and the sodium hydroxide. What looks to be kind of a pink precipitate with the ammonium carbonate. With the copper 2 chloride, I have a blue precipitate for both of them. Let's take a look at our darker background because sometimes that makes it a little bit easier to see. So let's see if I can do this carefully. There we go. So now we have kind of a nicer look. So you can see the precipitates. This is with the cobalt 2 chloride. This second column is our copper 2 chloride. We can see the cloudiness in each of these for the iron 3 chloride. That indicates a precipitate has been formed. And then with our nickel 2 chloride, it is a little bit lighter, but we can see that white or very light green precipitate that has occurred with that. All right. So for each one, we noticed our color changes. Okay, odor or gases given off, there's really not much of an odor for these. And then the formation of a precipitate. So yes, each of these do form a precipitate. And that is the cloudiness that we are seeing there. So from here, once you have your data, we are going to take the time to um, complete the balanced chemical equations. So you'll see this is reaction number 5 through 8, but you're going to do 1 through 8, and you'll see that each one has the names of each and then the products that were formed. Your job today is to write out, or once you're done, you're going to write out the um, completed balanced equations, and then we're going to have to figure out which one of these products is a solid and which one is still the liquid or the aqueous portion of the solution. And we're going to use something called a solubility chart to do that. So if we take a look, we should have a solubility chart. Um, Looks very similar to this, and we'll make sure that this is connected to Canvas. So you're going to look at your metals. You're going to look for those down. Say, here's cobalt 2 chloride here. You're going to look for your product, which in this case, let's see, for our first one, it's a hydroxide. So we had cobalt 2 hydroxide, says it's a solid. So for our first reaction of cobalt 2 chloride and sodium hydroxide, we end up with the cobalt 2 hydroxide being our solid. So you're going to use that table to complete the rest of these reactions and determine which is the solid product for each one. All right, this was our double replacement reaction lab.